Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we consume clever home improvement tips in easily digestible 6-second chunks, and then regurgitate our thoughts on choosing the right social networks for your brand. Get ready to go swinging, humans, because we're checking out some vines.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, the official podcast of Monsters Unlimited, a creative agency with a business brain. I'm Shad Conley, Communications Director at Monsters Unlimited, and I just want everyone to know up front, listening to this podcast will in no way help with your home improvement projects. It may actually hurt them.
And I'm Patrick Jebber, Creative Director at Monsters Unlimited, and a guy who really likes to build things from stuff I buy at Lowe's.
Who doesn't? If this is your first time checking out the podcast, our goal on Speaking Human is to simplify complex marketing topics. We toss aside all the buzzwords and mumbo jumbo to focus on how marketing can bring brands and people together. On today's episode, we visit the Vine page of home improvement brand Lowe's to see what kind of handy tips we can learn in 6 seconds or less. We'll also use that as a springboard to discuss what social networks you should use for sharing your brand-produced content with the online world. Before we become completely hypnotized by these looping vines, let's get into it.
Oh.
What you just heard were a few quick audio clips from Lowe's unique series of Fix in 6 Vine videos. Obviously, the visual component is vital to these videos, but the audio still gives you a sense of the fun tone of that Vine series. We're going to talk about Vine and how to select the right social networks to fit your unique brand. But first, Patrick, can you give us a little background on the Lowe's Fix in 6 Vine video series?
Yes, I can. I figured starting at Vine might be the best place to start today, Shad, just in case our listeners aren't familiar with this social channel. So Vine is a social media platform that allows users to share short looping videos. And when I say short, I mean it. They're 6 seconds, or more technically 6.5 seconds to be exact, but we won't get into the nitty gritty. The Lowe's Fix in 6 video series capitalize on this abbreviated window by creating quick tips that can be consumed in roughly 3 blinks of an eye. That's a technical thing that we use in the video and audio world. Everything from cleaning your dirty grill grates by soaking them in coffee to using a dryer to remove pricing stickers. They've done a great job of boiling all of these tips down into 6 seconds or less, which is very helpful and quickly shareable.
I like how we measure time now by blinks of an eye. Like I'd be like, how long did that take you? It took me about 257 blinks of an eye.
It's a really accurate measurement of time.
There's no better. So anyways, digging into these a little bit, first I'll say about Vine. Vine is probably one of the most well-known, as in people know the name, they've heard of it, but have no idea what it is or don't really use it frequently. Do you agree with that assessment, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's one of those that it's used a lot by some people, and then there's other people, they've heard of it, but have no idea what it is.
Yeah, and it's been around for a few years, and it hasn't really exploded the way some social channels have. But like many of them, it's kind of established its own niche, which we'll talk about in a little bit here.
Right.
So digging into the Lowe's, Fix in 6 Vine series, do you like these? What do you think they do well? What do you like about them, Patrick? Go.
I'm on the spot. Like I was saying earlier, they've done a really nice job of boiling down their tips to the bare minimum, both visually and verbally. Like that little plug there for our other podcast. This is, I think, one of the more difficult things to do. It's extremely hard to do in many of the examples on their Vine page. Just like any type of communication, it's always difficult to pinpoint the most important parts of a story, whether that's a brand story or a specific marketing message or a personal story or whatever it is. So the fact that they've done that in very unique and creative ways on their Vine page is impressive, would you say?
Yeah, I'd agree. And, I always say there's nothing harder than making things short. Short and concise is about the hardest thing you can do when you're putting things together. Usually the best, but, it's harder. And that's what these Lowe's Fix in 6 videos, I think, do really well. There's 3 prongs, I think, why this is a great Vine video series. One, they're useful. I mean, there's actual valuable content here. Going through these, I found stuff that I was like, I should try that, or that's something I didn't know that could be useful to me and I could actually put to work in some practical way. The second part of that is they're done creatively. Like you mentioned, with the cleaning your grill grates with coffee, they don't just show you someone dipping a grill grate in coffee. They have a whole animated video that goes along with it. A meat fork is attacking the grill grate, and then it falls into the coffee. There's a whole entertainment aspect to it, too, that it can stand on its own as just this video. And that, mixed with the usefulness of it is pretty valuable. And then the third part of it is the strategy that goes into it. This is content that's effective at reaching the target audience for Lowe's, which is do-it-yourselfers. These people who are looking for these tips to take care of these kind of things. Also known as the people who shop at Lowe's. So, those three things kind of taken together is what makes this a masterful little piece of social content creation.
Yeah, telling a story that is for the everyday person. All of the videos have a product that they sell in them, and then a way to help you in an everyday scenario that, many people deal with, like the grills being dirty, or caulking your tub, or getting a stain off wood with mayonnaise. I mean, all these things, like you said, you may not even know that those solutions exist, and they're interesting.
Yeah, they're simple and informative, and they're not selling a product. It's not like, have problems with water stains on your table, come to Lowe's and buy this. It's like, grab some mayonnaise and you can put it on there and clean it right off. Yeah. So there's a good tie-in between what the brand does and, the people it's trying to reach. Also, I would say, we talked a little bit, Vine's somewhat under the radar or unknown of the social networks, and I think Lowe's is one of the best brands on Vine right now, I think, with what they're doing with this series. Along with, Dunkin' Donuts, Oreo, and Target are a few other brands that I've seen. I'm a big fan of Vine personally. I know it hasn't really taken off, but I love it. The main reason is I like the limitations it sets. Like Twitter, I think Twitter is probably my favorite social network, and that's mostly because of the limitations it has, right? Mm-hmm. You can only use this many characters, so you got to whittle it down to this many characters in order to get your message out, which I think there's a lot of situations, and we've discussed this a few times, where limitations can be, a good asset in terms of creativity. I call this the Jaws syndrome. They had the movie Jaws where Spielberg had that broken shark, and he had to, instead of showing the actual shark, would just show the fin, which turned out to be way more powerful. And that's the creativity that can come from limitations, and we definitely see that in these Lowe's videos.
I agree.
You want to talk about some of your favorite videos in the series, or what you think were the best ones or the most useful ones?
Yeah, just as a normal human being, I really liked a lot of the helpful ones that I didn't know. Like, we had mentioned before, the cleaning my grill grates in coffee. Honestly, before I saw that, I didn't know that you could do that. I do tend to wonder who has a big bucket full of coffee and how much coffee that would actually take.
I thought about that myself. How many pots of coffee am I going to have to make in order to do that?
Yeah. Maybe you just got to put the coffee right in the bucket. Anyway, a little sidetrack there. But aside from the real helpful ones like that, I also enjoyed, the cute ones like the blatant advertising for the leaf blower on, I think it was on Good Friday, used by the big bad wolf to blow down the piggy's house. Did you see that?
I did see that one.
I like that one a lot. It was cute. And even the Yeti, where he's dumping sand underneath the car's tire in the winter to get traction, and then the car takes off without him. Those are cute little animations.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I liked a lot of these on two levels. One is the ones that I were like, okay, these are the useful tips where I gravitate towards the content and what I'm learning, like the coffee on the grill grates, or the, I'm doing some painting, so there was one about how you can stick your paintbrush in a bag and put it in the fridge, and it'll be good for 4 days. You don't have to clean it.
Yeah.
There was another one about spraying like Pam or cooking oil on your snow shovel so snow doesn't stick to it. And then another one was the using a hammer and a cookie cutter for pumpkin carving.
And then they did a cool animation when they spun the pumpkin around.
Yeah. So those were some of the ones that popped to me for the actual ideas they present where I'm like, it's pretty interesting. I should try that. But then, as you mentioned, there's those other ones that are just like from the creative perspective, you're like, that's pretty cool or interesting or entertaining. And the one that immediately popped to me was the one you mentioned, the Yeti. Pretty clever and funny. Also, the one I was talking about with the cooking oil on the snow shovel has a good little animated sequence that goes with it.
And one of the things that is interesting about Vine that we didn't talk about, the looping factor. to get these things to loop where it's seamless from end to beginning. That's very, very difficult to do, right? Don't you think so?
Oh, yeah. And that's what some of the best ones do. So that is a key factor. And another thing, is that the way this works and how you create vines is a lot of them have led to this stop motion animation, which, there's definitely some real skill involved in pulling that off.
You're incentivized to make your Vine video be interesting.
Yeah. And the best ones have that hypnotic feel to them where you just kind of keep watching them and watching them and watching them. And maybe you'll, in one little quick sitting of a minute, you'll watch it like 10 times.
And there's 10 loops on Vine.
What are some of the important things for brands to think about when choosing what social network? Like obviously Lowe's strategically chose Vine and we're going to use this medium to relay this content to our audience. So for other companies out there struggling with the same thing, how do you figure that out? Like how do you choose which ones to hone in on?
You can always get the list breakdown from almost any site online, like, what social channels are right for your business and that kind of thing. I tend to ask clients to reflect on one major question with two parts. Who is your audience and where are they?
Which is similar to Schwarzenegger's question in Kindergarten Cop of, who is your daddy and what does he do?
There's always a little Arnold in every single episode. So I say if you sell shoes or that type of product, something that's very universal, almost any social channel might work for you. And again, it totally depends on where you think your audience is, what kind of budget you have for your marketing and your social. What kind of ideas do you have? Like, do you want to be fun, whimsical, or do you want to be more serious? Whatever that is, that type of product, a more universal product, you could probably do on pretty much any social channel. And I'm building this under a big umbrella. I know that you can get really into the fine details of any business, but if you sell business insurance or commercial real estate, you'd probably want to stick to a business-minded social channel, like a LinkedIn or whatever. If you look at that main question of who is your audience and where are they, it usually tells you where you want to go.
And I'll throw out another two side things, and you may or may not agree with these. One is, what do you like to do? As far as you as a company or whoever's in charge of your social, what gets you excited or interested? If it's something that becomes perfunctory where you're just doing it to do it rather than something you're actually enthusiastic about, it'll fall down real quick and nobody will be very interested in it. So I think that could be a factor in which network you choose as well, where your interests lie.
Yeah, what are you going to have fun with? And I know we've said this so many times in so many episodes in the past, but having fun with your marketing is so very important. Where are the good ideas coming from? And let those people have fun with it, because those will be the things that succeed.
Yeah. And there's also an element of, you can experiment. You obviously, social channels are free to set up. You can go on there, you can try some things out, you can see which ones you actually like, or which ones you think will work for you, and that gives you the freedom to just try some different things out and see if you can create your own fix and six, or maybe you go on Snapchat and you're like, I got a good idea of how we could use this. There's that room for experimentation, which I think if you take the time to do it will probably help you discover more of where the people you're looking for are and what you like to do at the same time.
There was a lot of the word free being used.
Freedom, man.
The only thing that I would say that is not free in that is your time and your resources.
Social in general is the ultimate time eater.
It's highly, would you say, underrated, the time that it takes.
Oh, yeah.
Just like we talked about in our podcasting episode, the amount of time it takes in editing and production, all those things that you have to account for, it can add up quickly. So you definitely want to experiment with something that has some merit, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt. Certainly time with social media is one of I call it the black hole. It looks so simple, and you think, a couple minutes on there a day, wrong. To do it well, it's a lot more time, and you're going to just find yourself like spending more and more time to reach the right people and put your social strategy together. I mean, there's a lot of time goes into it, way more than you initially think when you're just like, let's tweet out a few things. It's not quite that simple, at least when done well. And that's why I always say, if you have that time crunch and those constraints, it's better to do one social network great than to do 5 of them half-heartedly.
That's a great piece of advice.
So anyway, what's your top takeaway for companies from the Lowe's Vine efforts, the Fix and Six series, and on choosing social networks in general?
So I've been breaking my top takeaway down to the nitty gritty. And after you answer the questions about your audience or your customers, who they are and where they are, then you should think about that story. And storytelling is so critical. It's an art form. You know this, Shad. It's something that needs to be carefully crafted for each mission at hand. Wouldn't you agree?
I would totally agree.
It all comes back to the storytelling. Each one of these 6-second videos is telling a story. It might be a tip, but in the end, you have to tell a very elaborate tip or story in a very short amount of time. So you got to make it flow. And that is something that you have to really, 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 really focus on.
Taking it up one level, the whole Fix in 6 series in general is its own story. That's a subpart and reflects the Lowe's brand, but it is doing its own thing. It has its own, like you said, its own little mission to it. So my top takeaway, I'm gonna go a little outside here and say something for brands that are like truly interested in sort of doing something unique on social media or trying to create something interesting with their content. My takeaway is I think you should have a social wild card. So you have your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are your standards. There's not a lot of innovation going on there. There's some people doing some interesting things, but you're not seeing these like Fix in 6 style series that are just totally brand unique, I would say. So I like the idea of brands having a wild card, sort of a social site, a Snapchat, a Vine, an Instagram, a YouTube, a Google+. Those are all some places where you can do some more interesting things that truly stands out and is different, and it's totally your own. Social wild card.
I like that a lot. More times than not, when you experiment like that, you have happy accidents happen. You'll explore and find something out about yourself or the company that you can translate into something else, to some other effort that you have. So yeah, wild card is a great piece of advice.
And I agree with you. You're a little more under the radar. It gives you a chance to amp up the creativity. And a lot of times, like you said, that's when those happy accidents emerge, or you just get on something that rolls.
Like a Vine video.
I think we can call it a day on that one. What do you think?
Oh, yes. So that's it for today's episode. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast at speakinghuman.com. You can also subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Human podcast in the iTunes store.
Email us with your thoughts on the Lowe's Fix in 6 Vine series or any questions or comments. Feedback at thinkmonsters.com. That's feedback at thinkmonsters.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.